Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining us at our Vox webinar in partnership with Fortinet and Networks Unlimited. I'm joined here today with our experts, and we'll be discussing why software-defined wide area networking, otherwise known as SD-WAN. But we will be specifically focusing on the security aspects of it and what it all entails. I'm Jeanette Simpson. I'm a product manager at Vox, and I'm going to allow the experts just to briefly introduce themselves. Mike Kushmierzyk from Vox.
Hi, thanks, Jeanette. My name is Mike Kushmierzyk. I'm the product manager at Vox for SD-WAN, and it's nice to be out here outside on a brisk winter afternoon, a little bit overcast in Johannesburg, um, and out here on the Vox soundstage. I have been in the ISP industry since the late 90s with the advent of the first commercial ISPs in South Africa, and I have now been working specifically in product for almost 20 years.
Okay, then we have Alan Craig from Fortinet.
Hi, Jeanette, it's Mark. Thanks for having me here. So, my background stems from, an MPLS routing and switching background, and I've transitioned over the years into security. I've been in the service provider industry for about 20 plus years, and I'm currently a systems engineer in our service provider vertical at Fortinet and SD-WAN subject matter expert for the local entity.
And then Donovan Olsen from Networks Unlimited.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thanks so much for welcoming me today. My name is Donovan, as mentioned, and I'm from Networks Unlimited. I head up the Fortinet division, specifically looking after the SA region as well as the SADC region for Networks Unlimited, and really looking forward to explaining what SD-WAN is for everyone today.
Right, so just to let you know, you are able to post some questions in the chat, which we will address afterwards. So let's jump straight into it. And this is a question to all three of you. How would you define SD-WAN? Mike, let's start with you.
Oh, Jeanette, I think we're at that stage now where you could ask 5 people in South Africa what SD-WAN is. You can get 5 different answers, and to some extent, they'd all be true. I think for me, fundamentally, the most important thing is that what SD-WAN enables you to do is it takes the control layer of your wide area network away from your rigid hardware environment and moves it to a more flexible, dynamic software layer. The other most important thing that we define SD-WAN with is the fact that SD-WAN is application aware. So now you have something that actually monitors application performance and can dynamically make changes to your wide area network to ensure that those applications perform as you need them to perform.
And Donovan, how would you define it?
So I think very much like what Mike is saying is, SD-WAN for me now is kind of what the cloud conversation was from 10 years ago. Everyone's going to have a different take on it. So from my perspective at a high level, SD-WAN is really another mode or route of connectivity for offices, either between offices or for offices to connect to applications that are inside their network or potentially not inside their network, that is just going to give you better optimization of the use of the resources that you have available.
Alan, I suppose you're going to have a more of a technical stance to it.
Well, that's correct, Jeanette. I mean, we need to understand, the term SD-WAN and where it was garnered from. And it was actually Gartner that came up or devised the term of SD-WAN. And they define it as, a replacement for traditional routers that have to be agnostic to the WAN, underlying WAN technologies. Over and above that, they need to have features that provide dynamic application-aware ability to leverage, path selection across multiple WAN links. And in a nutshell, I mean, what that boils down to is it's dealing with the quality of experience for the application flows as well as the quality of experience for the user itself utilizing said applications.
So, Mike, there's a perception from business that SD-WAN is a very complex solution, and they might feel that they actually don't have the resources to tackle such a challenge. What is your view on that?
Well, Jeanette, in my opinion, I think SD-WAN is pretty much a victim of its own versatility. Because it is so diverse and versatile, there are so many options available. If you look at them all simultaneously, that can be a little bit intimidating. The other side of that is that many of the enterprises looking at deploying an SD-WAN strategy, these enterprises have existing WAN infrastructure in place. And the concept of integrating your SD-WAN solution with your existing WAN while remaining productive can also be quite daunting. And then the third side for me is that often enterprises looking at deploying an SD-WAN strategy might have many, many sites, different sizes with different requirements, which makes it look like the requirement can be extremely complicated when you look at deploying an SD-WAN solution. I think the way to mitigate this, and the most important thing for me, is when you are embarking on an SD-WAN strategy, the most important thing is to make sure that you drive the design from a business requirement perspective. So make sure that the solution does what your business needs it to do first. And once you have established that, it takes a little bit of the complexity away with it. Then you can explore some of the versatility and all of the other value that the enhanced or the available options on SD-WAN might bring to your business.
Alan, from a vendor perspective, what is your view on SD-WAN adoption in business?
So it's been quite interesting, Jeanette. I mean, we've seen it, definitely follow the hype scale that Gartner usually published in terms of, the interests growing, going through a trough of disillusionment, and then, slowly, as we're seeing now, is the uptake on it. But what we've really noticed within the industry is, as Mark alluded to here, it's about business outcomes at the end of the day. Why are people using this? And what we've realized here is that businesses are actually not leveraging the true nature of what SD-WAN presents to them. They're actually not leveraging the digital transformation to their businesses that they should be. So, in other words, they're not leveraging on using this as the technology it is and garnering that with public cloud or private cloud, etc. So it's been a bit of a slow uptake, but we're in that phase now where people have actually understood what the needs are, what the business needs are, what the business outcomes are, what the technical requirements are associated with it. One last thing I need to mention though is that an afterthought, which is pretty bad with this, is the security aspect of it, which I mean we're discussing here today. So some people have been burnt with the initial rollout of SD-WAN, and now looking towards a more secure solution going forward.
Mike, what are some of the benefits of SD-WAN? What benefits does it provide for business?
Again, due to its versatility, there are many benefits to the business of an SD-WAN solution. We look at the legacy resort that everyone looks at, which is cost saving, which surprisingly is not necessarily the number one driver anymore, but it still has an impact in terms of an SD-WAN strategy where businesses are looking to replace expensive dedicated links with broadband internet access. And that brings us to some of the other benefits of SD-WAN, where you can use multiple broadband links to effectively bring resilience to your network, using the cheaper internet access links to provide an enterprise level type experience. Um, what also SD-WAN also does, what you have is your application path steering, which is very important. We mentioned that SD-WAN must be application aware, and it's that application awareness that allows SD-WAN to make the adjustment and ensure that your applications perform as you need them to do. So along with that comes scalability. The great thing about SD-WAN is again, I refer to the versatility and the scalability. You can start off with a single site and then grow as your business needs it. Um, and then also on the back end of that, you're looking at the management and the deployment of your SD-WAN network and how this is done. And even a bigger benefit for us is when you integrate that SD-WAN with a security solution and you can manage and deploy these via a single platform and a single interface, there's an even bigger benefit to the organization as a whole.
So, Donovan, let's talk about security. What are the security concerns that when it comes to SD-WAN, and how does SD-WAN and cybersecurity overlap?
That is a really great question, and it's one that I could spend a lot of time talking about. I remember when SD-WAN, I won't say came out, but when it started becoming a bit of a buzzword, one of my colleagues at a previous organization, they were talking about SD-WAN and how great it is, but they weren't considering the security portion of it. Now, being a security chap myself and having been in the game for well over a decade in various roles, I'm always going to ask the security question, right? So, at a super high level, what we're looking at is a lot of organizations, what they tend to do is they tend to backhaul a lot of their traffic back to their head office. And this is for a few reasons, right? Namely, it could be that they're running an MPLS. A lot of the security decisions are actually being made at head office. But most importantly, a lot of the applications that individuals are accessing reside physically at a head office. So if I give you an example, Jeanette, if we have an organization with multiple branches, we've got Rose who's sitting in branch B. She's an HR and she needs to connect to the HR system that is physically away from her. It's 200 kilometers away and it's sitting in the HQ, the head office. She has to, via the internet, go over the internet back into the office. Hopefully, there's some form of authentication happening. We can verify that she is who she says she is and get access to the relevant information. That data then goes back and traverses the net back into to Rose, and she can do whatever she needs to. But the problem is, what if the application that she wants to connect to no longer resides on site? What if it resides in the cloud? Or what if it's a brand new site and it's not connected to the MPLS network? What then? We're not going to have security being taken care of at the headquarters because it's now at a remote site. And this is where, from an SD-WAN perspective, we need to be very careful that we are taking this into account. And it's why you want a solution that's going to look at both the security aspects of SD-WAN as well as the connectivity aspect of what SD-WAN can give you.
Alan, FortiGate specifically references the next generation firewall. What does that entail and what is the benefits for business?
So once again, I mean, we have to look at where that term next-gen firewall originated from, and that was Gartner defining a next-generation firewall many, many years ago. So in essence, what it is we've taken the traditional layer 3, layer 4 firewall, which operates at a network level, doing the network level inspection, and we've augmented that and brought it up the stack to be fully application aware, right up to a layer 7 firewall. Now, what we do there is we're adding in additional features and functionality like antivirus, anti-spam, DNS filtering, web filtering, etc. And it's a necessity, specifically operating on a perimeter, or in the case like today, we're talking about SD-WAN as a CPE, because the threat landscape is constantly changing. It's a constant cat and mouse game in terms of what needs to be inspected, what needs to be blocked, etc., to thwart those threats that pose a very big business risk to you.
Donovan, how does the SD-WAN secure product incorporate SD-WAN and security into one solution, and how does that benefit business?
So that's a really good question, and we could again spend a lot of time talking about it. But what we need to understand, and again, me being a security chap, the questions I'm going to ask is, if I'm looking at SD-WAN, is that SD-WAN going to be secure? Is it going to give me what I want? I've obviously asked the questions, what am I solving for? What's SD-WAN going to bring my organization? So I need to understand, well, if I'm going to go the SD-WAN route, do I then need to get SD-WAN in and add security on top of that later? Or am I going to have to do SD-WAN and in one file swoop, like with the Fortinet devices, give me security as well as SD-WAN in one phase?
Mike, what are currently the most common business drivers when it comes to adopting secure SD-WAN solutions in South Africa, and how do you think it will benefit business to take on a secure SD-WAN solution?
Oh, I think again we can have a full day webinar on the business drivers for potentially considering an SD-WAN solution. But I think the three that come to mind are still cost saving. It is a large business driver. Businesses are constantly trying to reduce their costs, and SD-WAN does enable that in the way that it brings down the cost of the fixed dedicated line infrastructure by using the cheaper broadband access solution. The second one for me would be cloud adoption. Enterprises, a lot of enterprises are adopting a cloud strategy. They're using cloud applications, and where they have multiple access or they need reliable, secure access to these cloud applications from anywhere. We have a lot of mobile users at the moment. We have a lot of people working at home in the pandemic, and they need secure, reliable access to these applications, and that is a big driver. There's a big value in SD-WAN that enables that type of environment. And then thirdly for me would be a branch consolidation, where you have an enterprise that has a lot of offices or different types of offices with different types of requirements and needs to manage and maintain that wide area network to keep those offices productive. So what you have with SD-WAN is you have an environment where you can very easily uh, deploy to different types of sites. You can have different types of configurations pre-configured and predefined. Have, for example, a small, medium, or a large office. Deploy an SD-WAN device to site, plug it in, and it will draw the configuration from a centrally managed platform. And in the event of the SD-WAN secure solution, you now have a single platform where you now can do similar things with, in terms of deployment and managing of both your SD-WAN, your wide area network infrastructure, as well as your security needs over and above that.
Alan, how does the FortiGate secure SD-WAN offering make it easier for businesses to roll out and manage both the SD-WAN and security components of their WAN?
So as Mark already alluded to with some of the aspects there, in Fortinet, we term it security-driven networking. And what we mean by that is we bringing the elements of the networking side as well as the security side together into a single box, appliance or VM. Um, and from that perspective there, we can centrally manage both your security and networking requirements from our central management platform. And at the same time, we can gain and garner all the analytics from a networking and security perspective for our analytics platform. It makes it so much easier for the teams to manage this from a centralized perspective rather than having disparate systems to looking at your networking side as well as then your security side and then trying to marry these two up to make heads or tails of actually what your network's doing from a performance perspective, from a security perspective.
Donovan, what is meant by zero touch deployment and how does the FortiGate platform enable this?
So I always laugh when I hear that because I dub it a vendorism. So zero touch, I call it zero-ish touch. So what you're essentially looking for, Jeanette, is you want the quickest mean time to response or to get up and running. So if I put it to you in terms of an example, if you were the customer and the three of us were rolling out SD-WAN to 500 of your sites, what that would typically mean then if we didn't have something like zero touch is we would physically have to go to each site. We would have to plug a device in, power it up, load the config, test it, make sure everything is working, drive to the next site, hit repeat, and off we go, continue. So you can imagine from an efficiency point of view, it's going to take a long time to do that. Alternatively, what Fortinet allows you to do is via a management console, all right, is basically send all those devices to all the sites, 500 of them, maybe you break it up 100 at a time, and you can have someone at site plug those devices in, and centrally we can then deploy config to all of those devices and make sure that we can get them up and running in the shortest possible time to make sure that from a deployment point of view, we are really minimizing the downtime or potential downtime at deploying SD-WAN. And I think that's what a lot of customers and organizations also need to factor into this. If they're looking at SD-WAN and secure SD-WAN, well, what's the quickest time to actually get it up and running? Those are things that also need to be spoken about.
Mike, you mentioned it earlier just briefly, but what are application level SLAs and how do these benefit business?
Okay, as we mentioned in the beginning, one of the defining factors of SD-WAN is the fact that it is application aware. And just being aware of the application isn't in itself a benefit. So what you need is a way to manage the performance of that application. And in an SD-WAN environment, you often do that in the form of an application level SLA. What this means is that you can specify SLA parameters for an application to provide the performance that you require. And what the SD-WAN platform can do is then monitor those metrics. And if there's a risk of breaching one of those metrics and jeopardizing potentially the performance of that application, the SD-WAN platform can take corrective measures using uh, application path steering to improve the performance of that application. Let's take, for example, a voice service. You could set a application level SLA saying, in order for my voice to perform the way that I need it to, I have to have less than X amount of jitter, less than X amount of latency, less than X amount of packet loss. And while the application is running in the live environment, the SD-WAN platform will monitor the performance of this application. And if, let's say, for example, the latency is getting a little bit high on the link that you're currently routing your traffic over, then the SD-WAN platform can dynamically take corrective measures and reroute that traffic to a link with potentially less latency and maintaining the performance of that specific application. So that's how you can use application level SLA, setting specific parameters to ensure that the platform uh, guarantees the performance that you desire from the applications you need.
Alan, what are VPN overlays and where and why would these be required?
So VPN overlays are essentially IPsec tunnels that get created, and they service two functions. The first primarily is from a security perspective, and it's obviously to secure the application flow between either a branch and the cloud application or branch and data center. But more importantly, you get some legacy applications that cannot employ their own sort of encryption technology utilizing SSL or TLS. So it serves as that pipe, that secure pipe to secure that channel for the application flow. The second side is more a networking, let's call it function that the overlay performs. It allows you as the end user then to take control of your routing, as opposed to letting the ISP, route or determine the routing that you want to employ. Um, so if we have a look at it, you can do this either on a static basis or on a dynamic basis, and it allows you to leverage in terms of how and where you want to route your traffic.
Donovan, would you say all businesses should look at the secure SD-WAN solution, or is it really only applicable to certain size or certain types of businesses?
So the answer to that is going to be yes, no, and maybe. It's really going to be dependent on what the organization is, where they're going. And Mark alluded to it earlier. What are they solving for? So, what potentially could SD-WAN fix that the organization is currently experiencing, right? Are they having bad SLA or bad connectivity between branches? Maybe that's something to look at, right? I would say if you have a business that is reliant on some form of internet connectivity, at the very least, you need to understand what SD-WAN is and can do for you to then understand what the benefits are or could be to your organization. And then you can obviously answer yes, no, or maybe.
Mike, please tell us a bit about the Vox SD-WAN secure product.
Well, Jeanette, what we've done at Vox with the Vox SD-WAN secure product is powered by Fortinet. We've brought the versatility of SD-WAN together with a world-class security solution, and we're offering it together as one solution. So you get the full benefits of the FortiGate security firewall side, everything from your unified threat protection, your virus protection, ransomware protection, the full features of the firewall, plus all of the benefits of the SD-WAN solution as well, which includes your resilience, your network resilience, ensuring uptime, the application path steering to maintain your application performance, and all of these features, the centralized managed by a single pane of glass, one platform, and we offer this as a fully managed service by Vox, which includes the equipment rental, so there's less need for a huge capex outlay up front. And we, as Vox, leverage our expertise and experience in this field to manage and maintain your SD-WAN and security solution while your business can focus on your core business.
Right, we do have a number of questions from our to our experts. The first one is, how does the secure SD-WAN product benefit cloud applications? Donovan, do you want to take it?
I think we've mentioned this in the past, right? Is that applications aren't necessarily going to reside on premise anymore. They are going to reside in the cloud. So we need to understand, well, how are we going to access those applications? Have we got the right connectivity first in place? Do we have the right security in place to connect to those applications? And that's going to determine, is it going to be of benefit to my organization or is it not? Large time, it definitely is going to be of a benefit to the organization.
Okay, the next question is this a scaled down version of the FortiGate firewall with SD-WAN functionality added? Alan?
So no, it's not a scaled down version of the firewall. It's exactly the same 40 gate firewall, exactly the same security posture that you used to using and configuring on a 40 gate. It's just that the SD-WAN is additional functionality that is just switched on to give you that capability on the 40 gate device itself.
Okay, the next question, I think I'll give this to Mike. Is there any way your voice can be protected as well as your router via SD-WAN?
By protecting your voice, I assume that they're referring to the performance of the voice traffic. And absolutely, yes. SD-WAN, again, uses the application path steering, can identify your voice at an application level, and will try and retain those application level SLAs to set for your voice to perform. If, with regards to router protection, they mean the firewall functionality. I think it's very important to understand here that in the SD-WAN secure solution, that you're looking at a broader security landscape. You're not just looking at some SD-WAN solutions where it is considered secure if you have an encrypted tunnel between two remote sites. You're looking at broader security here. You're looking at antivirus. You're looking at intrusion prevention. You're looking at the full next generation feature set of the firewall and everything that comes with that.
Next question is SD-WAN secure by default? Mike?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question, and I think the most important thing here is don't assume anything. Like I say, many SD-WAN solutions are secure, but what's important is how do they look at security and what do they consider? Is a secure encrypted connection between remote sites considered security? Absolutely, yes. I think, again, I speak to the SD-WAN secure product. It looks at the broader security landscape and looks at the entire threat landscape. So it's not just providing, it does provide uh, the encrypted tunnels between remote sites, ensuring secure communication between sites. What it actually also does is it can establish these tunnels dynamically when they are required.
Ooh,
Um, and in and in this instance, uh, excuse me, that threw
cheers.
me off a little bit.
It's live.
So, sorry guys, this is a live broadcast. So, again, the important thing is how do you find security and the security landscape. And even though SD-WAN secure does bring you that secure communication between branches, it looks at the broader landscape. It looks at securing your network, protecting your network against intrusion or any kind of unified threat protection. It helps protect against known and unknown virus attacks using the power of the 40 gate firewall. So I think it depends on what you consider secure. So my advice would be don't assume anything. And if you do refer to a secure SD-WAN solution, consider the broader landscape and not just potentially a encrypted communication between remote sites.
The next question, how can the security solutions prevent ransomware attacks? Can I give that to you, Alan?
Sure. So I mean, it all depends again on how you configure your security posture on site. But we can definitely, through the UTM functionality of the 40 gates, thwart any of the known attacks, etc., that are out there. Most solutions that are not doing any sort of content inspection of traffic coming in and out of that device will actually miss some of these channels that there's ransomware or malware actually gets brought into the business or into the what we call the threat landscape environment itself. So by leveraging the power of the next gen firewall with the feature sets that we've got on the 40 gate, most definitely you can you know get into a scenario where you can almost 100% thwart any sort of ransom attack. But again, as Mike mentioned, don't take anything for granted. Nothing is ever 100% secure.
Ever.
There's always a gap. There's always that cat and mouse game that you're trying to play
Yeah.
with.
How sensitive will the SD-WAN solution be for sites that have only one or two ISP providers that are not Vox connections? Mike?
Um, by sensitive, I again assume you mean to the features of SD-WAN and the performance, providing the resilience, the application path steering, and these are not dependent on a very specific ISP or root device specific. The idea here for SD-WAN is to be able to route that traffic across broadband links. And it can be any broadband link, can be a combination of service providers. And one of the issues there is that the traffic is routed across internet, which of course raises the security question, which we've addressed here today. But the application part steering, the resilience, it applies to any broadband connection that you can plug in the device. And obviously, the more you plug in, the more options you have in terms of resilience or potentially managing the quality of the performance of the applications that you need. But you're not dependent on a single service provider. It's a broadband internet connection.
Mike, the next one's aimed at you as well. Is there any other device that Vox uses apart from FortiGate?
Are you referring to SD-WAN?
I suppose it
Um,
is, yeah.
Actually, that's a great question for me because we have a fantastic SD-WAN Lite product. It's a product that we're very proud of. It's a Vox proprietary product. We import the hardware, we assemble the product ourselves. And what we've done with SD-WAN Lite is we've actually removed a lot of the complexity and designed something for a market segment that has often been excluded from SD-WAN solutions, and that's the SME and smaller business market. We find that these environments, they don't often benefit from the cost savings because they're already using cloud applications. They're already using broadband internet links. So we've taken the basic requirements, scaled down SD-WAN to provide four important functions. The one is resilience, to use multiple links to ensure that you have improved uptime. The second is the application path steering, where you can maintain the quality of an application by routing it to another broadband link. The third benefit is that it uses an advanced FEC algorithm to enhance Vox voice. So if you're using a Vox voice, SD-WAN Lite is great in areas where you might not necessarily have the best broadband link. You've got a little bit of latency, a little bit of packet loss. Using the SD-WAN Lite device can enhance the voice quality. So we have business critical voice, not necessarily in a great internet coverage area. It's a great device. And the fourth benefit of the SD-WAN Lite is the monitoring and the reporting, where it can provide information not just from a support and maintenance perspective, but also very critical WAN performance information that helps senior managers make an informed decision when it comes to investing in WAN upgrades. And that kind of information can help you focus that investment where it is most beneficial to your business.
Right, so next question is, how does SD-WAN integrate with the VoIP system? Can I give that to you, Donovan?
I think this is probably better suited for
For
Alan.
Alan.
The technical expert.
Yes.
There we go.
And voice is my favorite topic too. Um, so what one must realize is that, irrespective of the application living behind the device that's performing, in this case, the FortiGate, the SD-WAN functionality, we have the ability to identify the voice traffic, whether it be SIP, etc., that you're using, or RDP streams. Um, so once we've identified that, it's up to you then to define the SLA required for your said voice system. It could be branch to branch, in which case, we can define SLAs that once that dynamic tunnel is fired up to the branch or to a centralized PABX, that's actually doing or call routing that's been done on a centralized basis. As long as that SLA has been defined accordingly to your VoIP system, we can accommodate that no problem. We can tunnel that traffic through or pass it directly out through a direct breakout to the internet, which wouldn't be advisable, but rather create that secure channel for it. So it can definitely integrate to it. It's not a necessity that you need some special protocol to interact with an on-site PABX. It's just a path that we're providing for you.
Is it possible to have a blend of SD-WAN and MPLS sites? Who wants to take that?
I'll take that one because definitely, yes, in terms of SD-WAN, the last mile doesn't have to be a broadband.
Okay.
A lot of enterprises and businesses will consider broadband because of the cost implication. It's cheaper than a dedicated link, but it doesn't mean it has to be broadband. It could be existing MPLS infrastructure, and we actually see that a lot in terms of what we would call a hybrid deployment of SD-WAN, either where businesses have a specific requirement for a dedicated link and they can maintain that, or often in a case where business owners are in a migration phase from a fixed line infrastructure
Mm.
to an
Yep.
SD-WAN type environment, they can run both links simultaneously in order to maintain productivity while they're making the change. So no, SD-WAN is definitely not limited to broadband links. It can use any path available to it, especially for the application path steering. And it is not limited to just broadband links.
Okay, the next question is SD-WAN therefore an internet connection or rather an online storage service?
Ooh.
Donovan?
So I think the question is more around, is it a storage service? No, it's not a storage service. And if you remember what I said earlier, SD-WAN is really going to affect businesses that have a requirement around internet connectivity. So it's not going to store any data in the cloud or somewhere else. You're going to need to have internet connectivity for you to have an SD-WAN discussion or to understand what SD-WAN benefits can give to your organization.
All right. Is the SD-WAN secure solution more expensive than other SD-WAN options?
I think they're speaking specifically to the Vox SD-WAN secure product. And the great thing that you need to keep in mind here is that the SD-WAN secure provides you both the security and the SD-WAN solution in one at an extremely competitive price, um, ranging from as little as just over 2,000 Rand per month. And as a fully managed service, all those benefits that includes the hardware rental, includes the licensing, um, and a fully scalable solution as well. So if you look at the bigger picture and you consider the available SD-WAN solutions in the market at the moment, we're already extremely competitive in terms of our SD-WAN secure offering. But then you add on top of that potential SD-WAN deployments where you now have to add an additional security component over and
Hmm.
above to maintain both the SD-WAN and security components of the network, then you would find the combined cost considerably exceeds what the SD-WAN secure product can bring us.
Okay, what happens to my existing firewalls if I go with the secure SD-WAN solution? I presume they're talking FortiGate firewalls. No.
So look, I mean, that's the benefits of our solution. I mean, if you have existing firewalls, you can still leverage your existing firewall infrastructure. I mean, we understand that, in certain aspects, businesses have already an investment at play. So, in that case, you can leverage the SD-WAN functionality built into the FortiGate, but just rather, license it at a lower license tier from a security functionality perspective until such time, you deem that you actually need to upgrade your firewall infrastructure. The FortiGate's ready to go with it.
Great. Last question. I use a Vox VDC. Will you provide a physical or software FortiGate? And if so, why?
Again, I think we do offer both the next generation physical hardware based on the FortiGate F series, and we do offer VM versions away as well. And I don't know, Alan, from a technical perspective, if you would like to elaborate on that. But for the SD-WAN secure offering, we do offer various scalable solutions in terms of the FortiGate firewall solution, as well as 3 VM options.
Alan, do you have something to add?
Yeah, so I mean, the benefit there is that whether it's a physical appliance or VM, you have that SD-WAN functionality. It's the same 40 OS that runs on the physical appliance or a VM. So provided, that you have the hypervised platform to run the VM on, that will actually give you the throughput that you're looking for in the context that you want, not a problem at all.
Okay, great. Well, that brings us to the end of the webinar. Really, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our experts for all the info.
Thank you.
If you have any queries, you're welcome to email us at sales@vox.co.za. And yes, thank you for joining us and keep safe.